joining us. So let me ask you what the reaction is with regards to the governor's suspension of elective surgeries at all hospitals in Dallas County.
Well, you know, we're looking at the executive order, and each of the hospital's operation teams are certainly reading it. And we're going to certainly abide with the governor's order. You know, we're going to do that and be supportive of the governor. With that said, we do want to make sure that people that need emergency surgery or people that are in emergency situations will certainly still come to the hospital. And the reason is we feel like we have adequate capacity, that we can certainly treat the COVID-19, have capacity for that, and certainly handle the people that need to be treated for things other than COVID-19.
How much additional capacity will this provide? In other words, at all these hospitals, first of all, how many hospitals are just in Dallas County that are impacted by this? And how much additional capacity, either per hospital or total, for the Dallas County hospitals will this be?
Well, you know, in Dallas County, you've got quite a few hospitals that it's going to impact. But currently, if you look at Dallas County and North Texas, most of the hospitals are running somewhere around 70% occupancy, in the ICU around 70%. And we obviously have got plenty of ventilators. So I want people to know that we feel like we have adequate capacity. We feel like we can handle the patients that are coming in, not only the COVID-19, but the others. Jack, the other thing that's very important to note, all of the hospitals have very elaborate surge plans, and those surge plans have not been implemented yet. We can add many beds to our existing inventory if needed in a surge type situation. So we feel like from a standpoint of capacity and where we're at, we're okay now. As you look and see if we continue to surge, then we'll have to look at workforce. We should have plenty of PPE for the most part, and really collaboratively work together. The thing that would really help, Jack, to be candid, people ask me, what do I really worry about? I'm not as worried about our capacity. The hospitals are here. We're here to help the people. I'm worried about people not wearing a mask, getting a little lackadaisical and not doing physical distancing, and really aren't practicing good personal hygiene. The reason I tell you that, Jack, anecdotally, when I talk to the physicians, we're treating quite a few family members. I talked to a physician that was treating a husband, wife, 2 teenagers, and they all had COVID-19 and had been infected by one of the teenagers who had gone out to a local restaurant.
And let me ask you, as far as, well, is that just an anecdote, or is that a trend that the hospitals are seeing?
Well, in talking with some of our physicians, and I don't have exact statistics in front of me, the average age of the COVID-19 patients that are being admitted is certainly coming down. They're younger people than what the average age was earlier. And anecdotally, when I talk to some of the chief medical officers at our hospitals, they are saying we are in fact seeing more family members. Now, I don't have an exact statistic on every hospital related to those demographics, but I'm certainly hearing that.
And you talked about the surge plan before. Is that surge plan going to be enacted based on the governor's order, or does this just free up space before the hospitals have to go to their surge plans?
Yeah, the governor's order, I think his intent was to free up existing hospital space prior to going to a surge plan. That is correct.
Okay. And is there any estimate just in the Dallas County hospitals, all the hospitals in Dallas County that are impacted, is there any estimate on how much additional capacity that would provide, whether raw numbers or percentage-wise?
Yeah, I think the hospitals are looking at that as we speak. I don't have those numbers readily available, but I understand what you're saying. By enacting the governor's order, how much additional capacity do you get? It really depends. Hospitals do a lot of work, and I think people sometimes lose sight of this because they think of bed capacity. We do a lot of outpatient work. And so a lot of times beds aren't really involved in some of the treatment we do. But we'll certainly see what additional capacity would have.
Are there any individual hospitals or ICU units in the Dallas area that are overrun?
None of the ICU units, to my knowledge, that I've heard about are overrun. I do know that a couple of the hospitals, and then they're not doing surge, but they may have set up, and I'm making these numbers up, they may have set up a 25 or 30 bed area in the hospital that was COVID-19. I have heard a couple of hospitals say we're expanding that within the hospital to add maybe 10 more beds because we're getting more COVID-19. That's not a surge plan. That's just flexing some of your existing blueprint because you're getting more of those types of patients. But I have not heard of anyone who said their ICU was completely overrun.
So then what exactly is a surge plan when a hospital goes into that mode?
It takes on different forms, but let me tell you generally what it includes, Jack. Usually when you implement a surge plan, you look at saying, can I put 2 patients in a room? And so you may take a private room and put 2 patients in so that you gain more beds. Thing you can do, Jack, especially if you've got a pandemic to the point that you're surging on something such as COVID-19, you may take the recovery room area, which is well equipped in a recovery room because you've just come out of surgery, and you may actually put some intensive care beds there, some ICU beds within that recovery area. You may go to some other clinical areas within the hospital where you can set up additional beds. And then frankly, if you're in an extreme surge capacity, you might go to a common area, cafeteria, where you can put beds in that would be more medical surgical because you would not necessarily have critical care patients in that environment. So there are a variety of things that hospitals do, but they all have very elaborate surge plans. And within those surge plans, they review them. And I can assure you, every system, especially the ones in Dallas County, have reviewed those recently and have them ready to go if needed. Let's hope we don't need them.
And will that be decided on an individual hospital basis, or is that something where the hospital council decides? How would that be enacted, and what is the trigger point?
Well, it's really enacted at the hospital level. And so the hospital council would help if somebody went into a surge to the extent we could, but it's really the operational call of the people in the hospital and the CEO at the hospital. Different hospitals have different trigger points. They could say if our bed capacity, I'm making this up, reaches 90%, they may say, hey, we've got to get the surge team ready. Some might say, well, our threshold's 85%. Or they may say, if in ICU we reach a certain percentage, we're going to start preparing areas around, such as the recovery room, to handle more. They each have trigger points, but trust me, they're well aware and they stay on top of that. And they look at their PPE, personal protection equipment needs, and their workforce needs.
And nobody's in anywhere near that point yet, is that right?
Right. There are people that are treating more COVID-19 patients now than they were obviously at the first of the month, no question about it. But no one has told me that they're in the surge modality.
Get the CBS DFW local app on any device. Local news, sports, weather, video on demand, and CBSN Dallas Fort Worth. Download it.